Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community. Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast. I am Dr. Jerry Yu, CEO and founder of Next Level Physio. Today I have one of our clients and a new friend, I would say, Tara Estevez-Seickel, who's going to talk to us about a very I would say a hush-hush kind of thing out there, a topic that I know that a lot of people might be secretly dealing with. And we want to bring this out into the light. And I think after hearing Tara's story, you're going to want to get more aware of how this problem is out there. And perhaps if it's someone who's listening to this podcast, hopefully this will be helpful for you to be able to get the right steps or take the right steps towards getting this addressed. So Tara, without further ado, thank you for coming on our show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Tara, tell us about how you got started with running, because you are a runner.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us that journey for us and how you've become this person who is now long distance extraordinaire and doing some wild things with some cool people.
Yeah, I was an athlete my entire life. Growing up, I played softball, I played field hockey. Always admired runners. Would always see them running, everybody's smiling. They always have a smile on their face. I haven't found that yet for myself, but
Yeah.
I just always admired them, but always felt like it was something that was not me. It was out of reach. I was never going to be a good runner, which is a lot of what's underneath, in recovery. You discover that, what's underneath everything is the I am not good enough. So that plagued me my whole life. So once I got sober, in 2012, I started to feel better. I started to feel better physically and joined a gym. Said to my friend, I joined the gym, now what? And she was like, how about you go? Okay. So I go and started to get fit, really started to feel better physically. And I was in my early 40s. And one of our trainers at the gym I was a member of, she was a runner. And I would watch her and, same thing. She's out there and her hair is flowing and she's smiling and she just looks like she's having all this fun. And so I said to her, I was like, Jess, I want to start running. She's like, okay. I'm like, what do I do? She's like, start running.
Imagine that.
Just start running.
Get a pair of shoes and just start running.
Just start running. And so she helped me and she wrote plans for me, amateur plans, run to the mailbox, then run to the pole, run to the next pole, and just over and over and over. And I started to get better. And at this point, I had become active in a community led by Rockland Council of Alcohol, and we were putting together a fundraiser to support local recovery services, and we were doing a 5K. And we were planning this 5K, and all of a sudden, this novel idea, maybe I should run this thing. And so that was August of 2016, I think. And I ran my first 5K.
How did you feel after that? It must have been an accomplishment.
Oh, my goodness. So, a lot of addiction is around chasing that feeling. And I had that feeling. I finished that race and I was like, oh, I need more. I need more of this. And so I immediately finished my first 5K and I signed up for the 5-mile turkey trot. And I did the turkey trot.
Now, is that the one in the Rockland County?
It's the Rockland County.
That's not an easy one either.
It's not an easy one. It's not an easy one, but I set my sights on it. Again, I worked with Jess, and she's like, I can get you from 5K to 5 miles in a couple of months. And so it just continued to progress. It was 5 miles to, well, then I can run a 10K. If I can run a 10K, I can run a half marathon. If I can run a half marathon, I can run a marathon. That took a little bit of time to train up to the marathon. But the marathon distance itself has significant meaning for me. It's the 26.2 miles. I was in active alcoholism for 26 years. From the age of 14 to the age of 40. So I'm a big, like, numbers symbolize things for me. So I choose to run marathons to celebrate the 26 years that I was in active addiction and now recover from.
That's so powerful,
Yeah.
Tara. I love that story.
Yeah.
I do want to rewind for 1 second, and I want to hear how we even got onto this path of being an alcoholic at such a young age, because I'm sure there are people out there, like I said before, who are maybe struggling with this or know someone who's struggling with this.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people are fairly good at hiding it. But at the same time, like you and I have had conversations before where it's also easy to spot if you are somebody who's suffering from this.
Yeah. The phrase is, if you spot it, you got it. And it's crazy. I mean, the statistic now, I think, is 1 in 3. So 1 in 3 people suffer from some kind of addiction, whether it's alcoholism, eating disorder, some kind of vice that helps the escape. And that's what it is. It's the escape. It's the not being able to cope with feelings. And I started my disease, I truly believe, it started from day one. I have a lot of the isms. I had a lot of the isms. Alcohol is just a symptom of an overall disease. A lot of other things come with it. So as a young child, I was very defiant. I needed attention. I wanted attention. I figured out very quickly early in life that negative attention was a heck of a lot easier to get than positive attention. So I lied a lot. I cheated. I just was a deviant kid. Until, probably my early tween years, I started to recognize that I felt different than everybody. I never felt like I fit in anywhere. But like you just said, like a lot of people mask it. We learn to mask it quickly, and we tend to overcompensate. So I was very outspoken, and, I was always a leader of some sort. Like I always took a lead role in whatever I was doing. I was the leader. And it wasn't because I had the confidence. It was exactly opposite. It was because I didn't. And I so I would just overcompensate for this hole that I had. So, honestly, my first drug of choice was sports. And I poured everything into my sports from a very young age. And, I played like a wild child. Like I poured my heart and soul into it because it helped me escape from all my other feelings and, that not fitting in thing. I just constantly had to be, and I had to be the best. Had to be the best. And, going back to, I would never run because I never thought that I could do it well. And I would never try anything unless I knew I was going to go out there, I was going to do it well, and I was probably going to be at the top.
So Tara, I'm so glad that you brought up sports as almost as a drug. And in 22 years of practice, I've definitely worked with a lot of athletes over the years where I felt, even as a practitioner, that I wonder if there's something more behind what this child might be experiencing, because they just seemed very over obsessed with the sport that they were playing. And I kind of wonder how much of it was them pleasing people as far as teammates, coaches, parents.
Yeah.
Or was there a deep lack of something inside of them that they felt like this was their identity? And because of that, they had to pursue this as an obsession. And I get it, where if you want to be at a very top level, you have to be obsessed to a certain degree with your sport. But it almost felt to me unhealthy at times because of the nature of different injuries that they had, or the kinds of things that were said. And it kind of got me concerned at different points about whether or not this athlete was going to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically in the long run.
Yeah. And it's all of the above. It's all of the above. It's the sport provides that satisfaction of, I am good enough. I can do this. I'm really good at this. And then you get the family support and the accolades and all of that positive attention. And then it does become the identity. And I have to do this. If I don't do this, then I am nothing. And so those injuries happen, and I'm sure you see it, you have to fix me. I'm kind of here because you have to fix me.
Yes, exactly.
And we'll get to that too.
You're right.
But that is absolutely what it becomes. It overwhelms your mind. It becomes an obsession. This is who I am. This is what I'm good at. My parents say so. My school says so. My coach says so. I'm in the newspaper. And that was my experience. I was a varsity athlete for 4 years. 35 years ago, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Now it's become a little bit, more normal because kids start playing sports at the age of 1,
Right.
But, 35 years ago, being a 4-year varsity athlete was not the norm. So it was big time accolades. I was captain. I was all this, all that, all section, all county, until my senior year when my alcohol use started to get in the way. So,
what got you to that point, Tara? I want to know about that.
Yeah. So I don't remember the first time I actually got drunk. It was sometime between 7th grade and freshman year in high school. So, what is that? Ages 12 to 14.
Yeah.
What I consider the beginning of my active addiction is at the age of 14, when the obsession to drink took over. So my original drug of choice, sports, was no longer working. There was still a huge void, and there was a tremendous amount of anxiety. And I had at some point discovered that alcohol took that away. And when I drank, I felt like a completely different person. I was funny. I was, attractive. I was 5'10" at the age of 14. That's a rough time, I'll tell you. But so what I did is I compensated, and I hung out with the football team. I hung out with the baseball team. Like, I hung out with guys, and I drank. And so at 14 years old, it became my focal point, and it drove every decision I made, who I hung out with, what I did on the weekends. And it's a progressive disease. Addiction is progressive. So, and we'll talk about Herren Project too in a little bit, but Chris Herren talks about this a lot when he goes and he talks to students, as he talks about day one, the first day that you get involved with the drug, with the alcohol. That is the determining factor. It's never going to be the same as that day. You think it's going to be. You chase it. It's never going to be the same as that first day because it continues to progress. And it does not continue to progress in a positive fashion. And for me, from 14 to 17, from freshman year to senior year in high school, I was drinking almost daily.
Oh my gosh.
I was taking shots before going to practice, here, and I'm going to get emotional. My first drug of choice was my sports. My sports were the most important thing to me, and I was ruining it because I had this disease that I had no idea, and it was taking over. And, I was originally going to go to school to play field hockey. I ruined it because I got into a fight on the field hockey field because I was intoxicated.
Oh my gosh.
And the Rockland Journal-News happened to be there. And they got it all.
Oh my gosh.
And so here I was, fists up, having a fight in the middle of the field hockey field. And it was on the front cover of the sports section. And everybody thought it was hysterical.
Oh my gosh.
I lost my all section bid. I gave it away. And it was because I had this problem. And that was at age 17. And I continued in my addiction until I was 40.
Wow.
So, it can happen really fast. And, I am just so grateful for where I am today. And, it is so important to me to talk about this because I had no idea. And in today's world, it's better. It's a conversation that's had in high schools. You have Chris Herren come in and talk to the high schools, and there's all these clubs, varsity athletes against substance abuse, and what are the other ones? SAD, and all of these other things. But I was a varsity athlete against substance abuse. So it's like, how legit, you got your DARE programs and, the kids sign the contracts and say, I will never, I signed those contracts,
Yeah. Now, my question is, if there are any parents listening, what are some warning signs that maybe your parents missed out on that might have cued them into seeing that this was actually a problem? Because obviously you had access to alcohol from an early age.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, was there something that your parents missed as far as your behavior, as part of like just how you were changing?
Yeah. I don't know. I was really crafty. I was really crafty. I would come home for only a little bit in between school and practice and would hit the liquor cabinet. If you have liquor hanging around the house, check to make sure that it's actually liquor and it's not water filled. Things like that, tricks like that. But I don't know. I maintained my grades. I maintained everything.
Amazing.
I really, and like I said, from an early age, my behavior was defiant. So
Your parents were used to seeing.
Yeah.
It wasn't any different.
No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Hung out a little bit later asked to hang out a little bit later, lied about where I was staying. But I feel like those are typical moves of kids, and that, maybe it doesn't, just because they're asking to stay at a friend's house doesn't mean that they're out using or getting drunk completely. But, any obvious changes in behavior, like they talk about, grades dropping,
Being more
irritable, tired. But that was me from a very early age. So my parents.
Sounds normal.
Yeah, it was normal.
Plus you're an athlete, so you're going to be tired after practice and games.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That definitely, as a parent myself of 2 teens, we don't keep alcohol in the house, but definitely it's a concern if they can sort of keep this mask on, maintain the grades that they're having, and sort of put up this nice facade of like, oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's perfect. And yet they're struggling on the inside and having a hard time wrapping their head around how to deal with this by themselves. And that's very scary for me too, hearing that as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very lonely. It was very lonely. And, a lot of the way that I parent my kids is as a result of the loneliness that I felt. And it was not my parents. It was not anything that they did or didn't do. It was my disease that made me feel like I was alone, that made me feel like I couldn't talk to anybody. So I now turn that around and I make sure that my kids know, like, no matter what, if you feel you're alone, you're never alone. Because it concerns me. It is a genetic disease. Well, it's not proven to be, but if you ask me, it is. And, I may have passed this along to both of my children. So I want them to know that if they start to feel these certain ways, they can talk to me about it.
Right. I think that's a great way to not pass on that torch, if you will, to your kids. And I think it's apparent, it's really important to break lineage, break trends in those behaviors too. So it's great that you're doing that, though. Yeah,
it's that is exactly what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to break the cycle. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And, should they find themselves in a position that they need help because of everything that I'm doing, because of everything that